Alrighty, welcome everyone. We have almost reached the end of day one. I cannot believe it. If you are just joining, welcome. I am your host for the impact stage. We have a packed panel coming up, so I want to get to it. But before we jump into clouds, CRMs, and more, understanding how your partners work better together, let's learn a little bit more about the companies of our amazing panelists. So first, we will be hearing from Kelly Hecht at Amazon Web Services. AWS supports nonprofits of all sizes to increase support, expand awareness, and advance mission impact locally and globally. Whether you are working to generate donor, member, or volunteer insights through managed databases and analytics, AWS has you and has your back. At Giving Tuesday, we use AWS to power so much of our work, and we are so grateful to AWS for their services. Next, I want to highlight our friends at Salesforce. We have Lori joining. Salesforce is the #1 AI CRM, where humans with agents drive customer success together with AI, data, and customer 360 apps. So you can learn a little bit more about Salesforce right up on the screen. I think we have a little bit of a delay, but you'll see that. Here we go, coming through. Amazing. And while that is up on the screen, I want to talk about Practivated. We have Mallory Erickson, our very own Mallory Erickson from Practivated. If you don't know what Practivated is, it is an AI-powered donor conversation simulator and fundraising coach that strengthens fundraising teams and supports fundraisers. I have used this and I think it is incredible. It is a no pressure environment for fundraisers to practice while leaders gain insights into team-wide strengths and opportunities. It is an AI coach for fundraisers. Practivated lets you practice your donor conversations in a safe, no pressure space to get instant feedback. So that should be going up on the stage in just a second. And I get the absolute pleasure of introducing the host of your panel, Kelly Hecht. Kelly has been working for more than 2 decades in this space. She is a dynamic leader. Kelly amplifies what works and co-creates modern strategies that drive measurable, sustained results. I get to see that in practice all the time. And I'm so excited to have Kelly here today to lead us through this panel. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kelly, because you asked me specifically not to read your whole bio, so I will not shower you with too much more love. And excited to turn it over to you.
Hello, hello. All right, do we have everyone? We're going to wait for Ben. Hi, Mallory.
Hi, it's so
Lori.
good to be here with you.
How are we doing?
I mean, talk about ending the day with the dream team. I could not be more excited. I'm so happy that I have the 3 of you here with me. For those that are still with us, welcome, welcome, welcome. This has been an incredible day. There is so much content. I am going to try not to speak fast, but candidly, I'm really excited about the conversation we are about to have, which is about clouds, CRMs, and more. Since Kelsey just sort of gave everyone's intro, why don't we just go around Mallory, Lori, and Ben, and everyone can just say a quick hello.
Hi, everyone. Mallory Erickson, founder and CEO of Practivated. So excited to be joining this incredible panel.
Hi, everybody. Lori Freeman. I'm the Global GM at Salesforce for nonprofits, and very excited to make my fundraising AI debut today with such a powerhouse panel here.
Hey, folks. I'll round us out. I'm Ben Turnbull. I'm a solutions architect on our nonprofits team at AWS. Happy to join the dream team. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to give you a little context of how this panel came to be, and candidly also tell you about how complicated and messy it was for us behind the scenes trying to put this together. So the idea really stemmed from the fact that as I've been out and about talking to people over the last few years since I joined AWS, I very often get the question, why would I need AWS if I have a CRM? And so what I realized in talking to people was that there's just a lot of confusion about how all of our various pieces of technology, whether it be the cloud or a CRM or additive components, work together, where they're distinct, where they're collaborative, where they are competitive at times. And like, it's just sort of everyone stripping the energy and the ego and the sales aspect of it to just like really understand it felt incredibly important. And so I took this idea to people that I really know and respect, right? People like Nathan and Mallory and Lori and Ben and lots of people at AWS. And I just want to acknowledge that, like, even in trying to put together the content for today, it was messy. Like, people had strong opinions. One person would feel like something was really clear and another person wouldn't. And so if there is anyone on with us right now that feels like there's confusion here, I just would like to think that I am in your good company, because we've experienced the same thing. So we have some visuals that actually I'm going to pull an audible and not really use. I'm just going to verbally explain them. And if people want to grab them after, we can. But there's a couple things first and foremost. There's so much good content on here. And Mallory started us off this morning by saying, like, pick what's useful for you. So let me first help you understand if this is going to be useful for you. So if you work with a cloud provider, and there are a few out there, of which AWS just happens to be one, if you have a CRM, and or if you use any other nonprofit tools or technology, and you work for a nonprofit organization, stay with us, okay? So CRM, cloud provider, technology, nonprofit, okay? If you're with us, stay. Good news, guys, the people count is not like dropping dramatically. So we've got a good audience. Because what we're going to talk about is the fact that the data point that I had is about 79% of nonprofits, so nearly 80%, are using 5 or more technology platforms, right? That's a significant amount. And to be candid, I would suspect that's actually probably underestimated as well when I really think about it. So that sort of set the groundwork for why we felt this conversation was important. A lot of these technology decisions were made at different times, right? Someone didn't sit down and say, these are the 5 I'm going to choose, or these are going to 10 that I'm going to use. There's artifacts from previous leaders. There's artifacts from previous pricing agreements. There's artifacts from what was available in the moment. And so first and foremost, it's just good for you to be aware of how many tools and technologies your organization is using. And I encourage you here to step outside of your department, right? So think about what other teams are using. Take a colleague to lunch, schedule a Zoom, go talk to someone in finance and ask, because they're paying all the bills. And so that way you'll sort of get a sense as to where you are with the 5 or more. The reason we want to understand them is because of the things that we're going to get each of our panelists to talk about a little bit, which is understanding their intersections, right? Which we're going to hear a little bit about how Lori and Ben actually directly intersect. Areas where they do not intersect, we're going to hear a little bit about how Mallory and Lori's systems do not intersect by design. And then where those intersections play a role in how you as an organizational leader can get the most value, not just from what the technology is bringing from a practical perspective, but from other resources that are available to you through those technology providers as well. Okay. So for the purposes of explanation, before we get to our panel, one of the things we tried really hard to do was to tell this story without using any brand names, to just say like CRM, cloud, and random technology solution, right? And what we found was that was not helpful in bringing clarity to the discussion, which was our goal for today. So for the purposes of today and to start, we are going to use the brands that you see represented here. So Ben, wave at the camera and tell everyone hello. Ben represents the cloud, okay? And he is with AWS, so that's going to be the brand that we use today. Lori, wave at our camera and our friends. Yay, look at that smile. 5 o'clock on a on a Monday. Lori represents a CRM. In her case, she represents Salesforce. Okay. And Mallory, Queen of Fundraising AI Summit, represents another technology platform, in this case, Practivated, right? But the reason that I say that is because you could interchange any one of them with any other type of tool or brand name in their sector, and the things we're about to share would still be true. Okay, so if you happen to not use Salesforce as your CRM, or not use AWS, or you aren't yet a Practivated customer, it's okay. Just imagine them as sort of representative examples for today. Okay, so Ben is the cloud, which is often referred to as the infrastructure or the foundation, or in some cases, the electricity. Okay. And so what Ben and the cloud do is provide power. They provide compute. It provides storage. It provides all sorts of workloads that can predict things, and you can use it for recommendation engines and things of that nature, right? And so that is your cloud. And then stacked on top of your cloud is often a CRM. And most CRMs are built using a cloud. So this is where Lori and Ben shake hands and become friends. The Salesforce platform is built using AWS technology. Could you go to AWS and get all the same tools that Salesforce got and try to build it yourself? You sure could, but why would you? They already did it for you, right? So just using these two examples to start before we bring in Mallory, the question here to ask is, which cloud, if any, are you using? Are you using more than one cloud? In the nonprofit sector, that is not uncommon. And then when you go to your CRM, is your CRM built on a cloud? Is it one of the clouds you are using? Now, this is not a good or a bad answer. This is not right or wrong. This is merely to understand how those two things are connected. Because if we keep with this example, and your cloud is AWS and you're using Salesforce as your CRM, we've just determined that those two systems are built from the same technology and can probably communicate a lot faster, right? If they happen to not be, you would want to know that too. They might have plugins, they might have API connectors. Again, just good information to know. When we bring Mallory into the fold, right? Mallory is also built using the technology from AWS, but she does not sync with a CRM. That's by design. So again, all of this is to give you the context as we start into these questions of how and why you might want to understand and represent this. Okay? All right, so that is the preface. And now I'm going to start with you, Ben. I talk very publicly about the fact that I joined AWS without knowing what the cloud is. And I have learned what the cloud is. And I gave a very rudimentary example there to describe it to Lori. But keeping in mind that a lot of folks on this call are probably not technology first and are probably not used to some of the fancy terms that AWS throws around, help people understand what actually is the cloud and how does it relate to the work we do in nonprofits.
Absolutely. I can get us started. And thanks, Kelly. I think when it's useful for audiences like this, where there's a spectrum of experience and background. So rather than start with definitions, you can find the dictionary. We like to start with what the cloud actually does and how it ties into what your business is using it for. So there are two sort of the most common ways organizations use the cloud. And these are very oversimplified, but we'll start here to wrap your head around it. So number one is storage and backup. This is pushing data to a place. Could be structured data like databases or data warehouses. Could be unstructured data like files, any sort of file system you have in your organization. And it's really a place to store that information that is secure and safe and durable. And the second most common use case, and this is a large category, is running software or websites. So in this way, it's essentially renting servers to power applications. So that's two ways that organizations use the cloud. The core value of the cloud, and I find this is useful, you mentioned this earlier when you were mentioning electricity. A cloud is also a utility model where you pay for what you use. And this is really similar to electricity. So cloud services are metered. This gives you a lot of flexibility, more so than traditional IT, in the fact that traditional IT is, we like to say, it's kind of always on. A good analogy I hear a lot is traditional IT is like running a generator, and cloud is like connecting to the power grid. So with cloud, you pay for the electricity that you use, and if you need more, it's instantly available versus having to go out and get another generator. And this flexibility really enables you to build things faster. You can scale things up and down. You can save costs because you're only paying for what you use. And I think this is really key to describe these principles, because today we're talking about AI. And these are more important than ever in the world of AI, because organizations need to experiment quickly. They need to often scale immensely, whether you're using AI or you're building AI for others. And then obviously we're operating with cost constraints. So for this reason, we often say that there can be no modern AI without the cloud. And to wrap this up, I think that when you look at the tech platforms that you use in your organization, as Kelly alluded to, whether they're CRMs or softwares or whatever they are, chances are that the cloud is powering most of them. And it's easy to think of the cloud as giving those applications building blocks. Cloud providers in general provide the Legos, right? Storage, compute, AI, for organizations to construct and run your software. So in a nutshell, that's the foundational layer and how cloud fits in more broadly to this ecosystem.
Super helpful. And by the way, I've worked with you for almost 3 years now, and you just gave me new analogies that I haven't heard before. So thank you.
Always.
Okay, so Lori, as long as I've been doing this work, which is a fair amount of time, I have thought of the CRM as the heart and soul of our sector, right? It is the single source of truth was often the language that we use. So help us understand why there might be so much confusion between the cloud and the CRM, and why they are actually best friends and not combative enemies.
Well, I'll give it my best shot. It's funny you said the heart, and I always think of the CRM as some version of the heart and the brain and the nervous system. And I always find which one of those descriptors I use can sometimes go back to whatever's happening with that organization at the time. But if we think about the origins of CRM, it's really a strategy that's constituent relationship management. And I think one of the things that changed as we saw application providers and CRM providers move to the cloud is, at one point, everything that we put in the CRM or the database was all of the information that we had access to electronically. And that was constrained in many cases by what we were doing, maybe in direct mail, because we had a spreadsheet that had a file that we could put information in. And then we had some folks who were willing to take the information that was in their head about donors and put that information all in a solution. And the introduction of the cloud meant that everyone kind of started to think about data a little bit differently. And with that introduction came a lot of curiosity, and curiosity that continues. And the thing that really fundamentally shifted, that has taken us away from the option to have a single database, is we started thinking differently about the interactions that we have with our colleagues, the interactions that we have with our board members, the individuals that we deliver these services from. And it started shifting from being something that's more than fundraising. It really started shifting to, why do we interact with the causes that we care about? What's the role that we play? And that's when we got way outside the territory of being in a single solution, because we're all interacting in a variety of different ways with the causes that we're attached to. And to make sure that you have all that information in a single place when there's all these different solutions and all these different types of interactions just isn't practical. And now we're in this rich moment where the technology's really caught up, and you don't have to convince Mallory to let go of the application or the place that she's really committed to, or Ben to stop putting that information in one place or the other. The thing that's really important, though, is that you still create that alignment around that strategy of relationship management, because now the technology lets you make decisions about what information is going to live where, and how you're going to pull that information, and how you're going to, make decisions across your organization about governance. And now with the introduction of AI, we get to do all sorts of things that would not have been possible. But you really have to have that commitment to the strategy and know what data's out there and where it lives and what you want to do with it, and visibility across the organization.
I love that, and I love the word strategy. We're going to come back to that at the end because it's a through line for all of you guys as well. That's really helpful, and I hope that people really heard in that the value of understanding and curiosity, which has been such a great theme today. Because when you get curious about the relationship between your CRM and your cloud provider, it's really just what helps answer a lot of the questions that you may have around what should I use for which, and where should I purchase one from the other, right? All of those things come into play. All right, so Mallory, you've had a super cool career on a million levels. One of which is that you've sat in a couple different seats in our industry. And so you've both influenced technology decisions, you've been a customer of technology purchases, and now you are actually providing a technology tool for organizations to utilize. So from this perspective, tell us a little bit about, first of all, why does Practivated not integrate intentionally with a CRM? And why is it still important that people understand the relationship between a tool like Practivated and all the other tools that they may be using?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with the second one, which is just because, when I was thinking about this panel and I thought, I came up in nonprofit through like small, mid-sized grassroots organizations, found myself in managing director roles, executive director roles, and I really like siloed technology from strategic decisions back to that like strategy or like program impact, right? I was like, okay, that's on the ops side or the infrastructure side or the HQ, but like here I am implementing program over here. And like, I really just didn't consider the way in which one influenced the other in really important ways. And so I actually think like the first piece is just that, and as somebody who's not a technologist, and technology has often brought to tears, I think I made a lot of decisions early on in my career about what I could understand and what I couldn't understand, and what could empower my leadership and what couldn't empower my leadership. And I really, cut myself off at the knees in a lot of circumstances where just by having more curiosity, by wondering some of the things that Ben and Lori are talking about, I actually would have been able to make more informed strategic decisions that would have pushed my organization forward in really meaningful ways that I didn't even consider because I thought it sat in a different bucket. So that's maybe like the first thing that I'll say to like part two. And just to say that, anybody, if I can learn about technology, anybody can learn about technology. And so it really is just giving yourself that shot, that curiosity, that wonder, I think and to do it from your program and mission oriented space is the best way to ask these questions, And so I just want to I don't know, I feel like sometimes we run into like the right brain, left brain debate here. And I'm just sort of like, break it down, And then the piece about Practivated. So, in Practivated, we create these AI avatars for people to be able to practice donor conversations and donor meetings. We don't integrate with CRM systems today. We don't actually require any private identifiable information about donors in order to create these super realistic contextual conversations. So we don't need to integrate in order to give that real feeling conversation. It requires the fundraiser, the nonprofit leader to input a tiny bit of information manually that is not private, is not what's living on a CRM. And so it doesn't actually matter that it integrates. And I'll be honest, I was on a client call recently and they were like, well, it would be great if, you built this flow in where after a donor conversation, we come back, we talk to your AI coach, and then it stores, we have donor profiles inside Practivated and it stores there. And I said to them, this is not your database of record. And it shouldn't be. And I'm not trying to compete for it to be, right? And now I'm a nonprofit tier at heart. And so I won't do anything in our technology that I think makes nonprofit people's lives harder down the line. And I understand that, so nonprofit leaders, you need to be thinking about that, right? Like, where should that information really live and be stored? And it's unnecessary for it to be Practivated for them to have a wonderful experience. So we're not going to create confusion there.
I love that too, because it's also not, we don't have to have one piece of technology that does everything, right? Especially in today's day and age, and especially with agentic, it's going to be easier and easier to pick and pull the pieces that matter. The other thing that I really want to put a finer point on here is that when there's fear and uncertainty, which is coming up a lot, and Mallory's talking about bringing a new AI-enabled bot, it's really important to know it doesn't integrate with Salesforce, so that you can put aside fears that it might have PII or have other related concerns. Conversely, when you look at things like your CRM and your cloud provider, really good to know where your cost efficiencies lie. Really good to know that you can bring them both into the room to strategize for and with you on behalf of the mission that we all care about. So this is like so great. I'm so grateful you guys stuck with me through all the mess of this thinking and planning. I really hope that the folks on the line right now with us and people watching this down the road are extracting from here the goal, which is to just start asking the questions, get curious. Don't worry if things aren't exactly the same or aren't lined up. And really spend the time to invest to understand how your technology is currently supported, and make sure that you ask any and all resources that are available beyond just the technical tools. What back-end offices do they have? What strategy can they help support? What cost enabling and decreased services are available to you as well, so that we can keep working hard for our missions that deeply deserve it. Mallory, Lori, Ben, thank you so much for joining me and for joining everyone and sharing your wisdom and your care and your knowledge and skills. We really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you all so much, Kelly, Mallory, Lori, and Ben. Mallory and Kelly. You guys are
that's my new name, Mally.
I love it. I had this image as you guys were all talking of like all of these disparate systems floating around, and you all were able to connect them with like spokes and a network for me in my brain. So thank you so much. I hope others in the chat are feeling the same way. And as we keep learning about tools and how it's so helpful to have leaders at these tool building companies guide us and how to connect all of these things as we're adopting them. So thank you all so much. And we have some great resources from our sponsors that we're sharing to you. You can download AWS's guide to putting the fundraising AI framework into action. That is right there up on the screen. Please utilize that. Salesforce is also offering a free download of their 2025 nonprofit trends report to see how nonprofits are finding new ways to meet rising demand. So that will come up on the screen in just a second. And Practivated is offering a free session with Coach Tivy. And if you don't know who Tivy is, it is an octopus and it is amazing. It is your coach to build confidence one conversation at a time. So you can check out all of those links. I also encourage you to share your feedback with us today on what you thought of this session. We share all of that feedback with our incredible speakers. So make sure you share that. And then I just want to call attention to, we are coming to the very end of our day. This is what is currently happening on the Amplify stage and on the Innovation stage. And right after this, I will be going to meet Eric Tamalis here on the Impact stage on our session, Moving Up the Grid, how nonprofits can unlock greater efficiency and better results. And build your schedule for tomorrow. If you haven't already, you can do that in the upper right-hand corner. And I'll see you soon on the Impact stage. thank you so much for being with us and for sticking it out on a very long day. It has been a great conversation and really appreciate it.